Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Slashfilmcast, the official podcast of Slashfilm.com. I'm David Chen, and with me are...
Devendra Hardwar.
And Jeff Kanata.
Welcome to the show, everyone. You can find more episodes of this podcast at slashfilmcast.com. You can also email us at slashfilmcast@gmail.com. Today, we're going to be discussing what we've been watching, and then moving on into a review of Shane Black's newest film, The Predator. But before we do that, a couple things we want to mention. First of all, the Summer Movie Wager happened last week, our follow-up episode. And there was, I wanted to ask you guys actually before the show, but now I'm asking you live on the air, whether there's anything else you wanted to mention that we didn't get to last week. Because there was one thing I thought of that I wanted to mention, which is...
What's that?
I actually thought Warner Brothers had a pretty amazing summer. And I wanted to just give them a shout out because this is the studio that opened Crazy Rich Asians and The Meg on back-to-back weekends, and both of those turned out to be huge hits. And also, like, not based off an existing franchise of films. Instead, those movies probably created new franchises, right? So I just thought Warner Brothers had a great summer, and wanted to call them out as like one of the big success stories of the year. Also, I think they did The Nun as well, which is a massive success. So they're just having like a pretty gangbusters last month or two. And I think, like, my guess, not 100% sure, my guess is the consequences of their victory will be felt for years to come in terms of what other movies might spawn from the Conjuring universe or Crazy Rich Asians sequel or things like that. So just wanted to mention that.
I think the effects of your victory will be felt for years to come.
Trust me, the effects of my victory will also be felt for sure. I mean, here's the thing, Jeff. Here's the thing that I'm ashamed of, is that I have only equaled the maximum number of times somebody has won the Summer Movie Wager, which I believe is you.
That's right, baby.
At 3 times. I know it's hard to believe, but there was a moment in time when Jeff Kanata was considered good at this game. But those times are long gone.
There were considerably fewer participants then.
Yes. So I am hoping that next year brings the decisive victory that I need to declare myself the greatest Summer Movie Wager player of all time. And
we shall see.
Yeah, I'll be looking out for it, and hope everyone listening is also looking forward to it.
Coming summer 2019, it all happens.
Yeah, indeed. Also, a couple of other shout. I got so caught up in the pageantry of the occasion last weekend. That there was a couple shout outs that I forgot to give to people who had participated and won. There was a Slack leaderboard as well. People who participated in the Slack, the Slashfilmcast at slashfilmcast.com. And the technical winner of that leaderboard was Justin Lerbakken from Minneapolis, Minnesota. So Justin Lerbakken got the best score out of all that. But here's the thing.
That's not just a technical win, Dave. That's an actual win. That's how winning works.
Oh, okay.
That's just a technical win.
Well, here's the thing: is that Justin Lerbakken, even though he signed up for the Slack leaderboard, he's not actually active in the Slack. He just signed up, so I wanted to give him a shout out. But the person in the Slack who actually still contributes is Paula Fernandez. I think she's from Brazil. But Paula Fernandez is actually the top scorer in the actual Slack. She actually chose a movie that she wants everyone to watch, which is Faces Places. So if you're in the Slack, and some good documentaries were chosen by.
I've seen that one already.
Yeah, you saw that one.
I've already participated in the loss for that one for the Slack.
Good job. You saved yourself some time there. So anyway, wanted to give a shout out to those folks. And again, thanks to Dennis for making this year's competition possible. Again, you can listen to our conversation about this year's summer at the Slashfilmcast feed, and also thesummermoviewager.com to see all the scores. The movie I chose as winner for everyone to watch was Minding the Gap. We'll probably review that movie coming up in the next few weeks. It's Minding the Gap. It's on Hulu. Check it out if you want to be ready for our review of the film. So you can always, if you're a listener, email us at slashfilmcast@gmail.com. We got a few emails at slashfilmcast@gmail.com. I would say these emails have very, 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 very minor spoilers for Searching. So if you are completely spoiler averse, maybe skip forward for a couple minutes. But I really don't think it's going to spoil anything. This email comes in from Justin from Iowa, commenting about our Searching review. Justin writes in, "Hey guys, thanks for the great review of Searching. Got me to see the film today. I was wondering if any of you guys noticed side posts and stories about potential aliens. There were notes about increased talks of UFOs, NASA debunking those rumors, and then links about NASA set to make a big announcement from the White House. I thought the third act was a bit wacky as well, but I was literally scared the movie was going to go truly into bananas territory with that being an actual plot point. Just curious if anyone noticed this weird side plot. So Searching is a movie starring...
kind of rad. That would have been kind of rad if we're like, what happened to the girl? Did she disappear? She drove off. Oh, she was abducted by aliens?
It's another red herring thing, right? Because it's just this thought that's planted in your mind as you're watching the movie. It's like, oh, it could be this, could be so many things.
Yeah, so to be clear, what he's talking about, right? Like, Searching is told completely in a computer screen, and I guess throughout the movie, there's an entire subplot in, I guess, like chyrons or like the news ticker, right? Or like in the background of the screen, like other news stories about aliens. I did not catch any of this the first time I watched it.
Oh, man.
Did you see any of it, Davidra? Or
Yeah, it was so good. It was definitely on my mind. I think that's the key, right? Just this little hint of data. It's like, oh, could it be this? It's I think the makings of a good mystery, but I'd also love for a Searching Cloverfield universe type thing.
Yeah. So anyway, I did not catch the aliens in Searching, but if you haven't seen the film yet and want to check it out and look for that little Easter egg, it is there for you. This email comes in from Josh from Toledo, Ohio. Josh writes in, just listened to the review of Searching and was compelled to write in. I was disappointed by your dismissal of the unfriended films. Both entries, particularly the sequel Dark Web, have everything you're looking for in this computer cinema format and were released well before Searching, yet were tossed aside as less ambitious and given no credit for being groundbreaking.
I will say the first Unfriended was given a lot of credit. A lot of people like that movie. And
I think I think Joshua from Toledo, Ohio, is talking about us giving it not that much credit. Searching lacks the crucial attention to aesthetic detail that makes the style feel so immersive in Unfriended, such as variable video playback quality, loading times, realistic mouse movements, a sound design that takes lag into account, diegetic music, etc. The attempt to bring in some conventional filmmaking techniques like a score and time-lapse editing is understandable, but the main effect is just distracting. As you all noted, a lot of the acting here is not good enough to sell an increasingly ludicrous script, and the story often falls into the classic found footage problem of making the viewer think, why is this conversation on video right now? All that said, I'm kind of glad most folks seem to like Searching, and I hope we get many more filmmakers trying some new things in this promising style. Also, hope you guys give the second Unfriended film a chance, and avoid falling into the trap of not taking horror films seriously as art. So that email comes from Joshua from Toledo, Ohio, rebuking us for dismissing the Unfriended films. I have seen Unfriended 1. I enjoyed that film, but also found it to be, I mean,
it's okay for us not to like things.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not a rebuke against you liking something. It's cool.
I don't think a single actor in Unfriended, the first one, was as good as John Cho in Searching. That's how I feel about that movie. I do think that Josh from Toledo points out some things that Unfriended did really well. Like, I do think that the screen used in Unfriended is depicted more realistically than the screen in Searching. And
I did hate the mouse movements in Searching as well.
They were extremely smooth mouse movements, were they not?
Too unreal.
Too smooth.
Yeah.
Too smooth.
That's how I use my mouse, guys. I'm telling you. What I would like to see as the next step in this style is abandon the all or nothing approach. Why not have this be a sequence in your movie or a portion of your movie? It can be both, right? You can have traditional filmmaking techniques and this screen. What is it? Screen life? Is that what
Screen life? Well, I think right now we're seeing that hybridization. Like even what was that movie? The one with Kristen Stewart, Personal Shopper, had some really good moments that were literally just focused on a screen. It was just her texting somebody, and we don't know who that person was. So I think a lot of modern movies are doing that, just maybe not in the same way.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how so many different properties have figured out how to convey text messaging in films, because there's a variety of techniques that have been used, and text messaging has become such a integral part of the human experience that more films use
that whole Crazy Rich Asians like montage sequence is incredible.
Yeah, I agree. And that's a brand new way of visualizing it. And I think it's fun to see how different people use it. And I don't have a problem with just focusing in on a screen and living on a screen for, 5-10 minutes of your movie. I think that could totally work.
I got to disagree with you there, Jeff. I think, per Devindra's point, a lot of movies have demonstrated they can seamlessly blend or depict. Actually, let me think. Let me think if I disagree with you, because I'm going to talk about American Vandal today on the podcast, and I think that movie actually does a great job. Like, it doesn't show you. No, actually, it does. There's many sequences where it's just like a screen and you see text pop up. So no, I completely just reversed myself. I think you're right, Jeff. It does work. But the problem is you can't. Really
Glad I was persuasive.
Well, the problem is you can't like lock yourself into a screen for like 10 minutes without it feeling inorganic to the storytelling, in my opinion.
Yeah,
you start. It's one thing if you like see a few texts pop up on a screen and like see texting back and forth for like 30 seconds, or 60 seconds. It's another thing to spend 10 minutes locked on a screen. Like, I just don't think you could have a conventional film and then like spend 10 minutes on a computer screen and then like, oh, we're back in the real world now. That just doesn't feel like it would work.
Maybe, but I know I mentioned this in our review of Searching. One of the things I liked most about that movie is that, at least for the first 2/3 of it, it really felt like the reason we were in the screen is because that's where this person would be to do the things he was doing, and it makes the most sense to engage with your computer if you're trying to figure out where someone is. That's what we all would do. We would sit down on the internet and we would try to figure out some things. And there's plenty of movies where there's a sequence like that. Think of it as a set piece. Like it's a searching set piece where you get on a computer and you try to figure some things out. I think that could work as a set piece. I could be wrong, but I think that I wouldn't throw it out just a priori. I think
fair enough. I think I think you're right, though, that the problem that a lot of these movies have, found footage movies, movies like Searching and Unfriended, is at some point you start questioning, like, why are we still on this computer screen? Like, this story could be better told not on the computer screen, right? Like, that's what happens usually at some point.
In Searching for me.
Yeah. So, okay, one last email I want to read before we move on to what we've been watching this week. First of all, I want to give a shout out to Eric Angelillo from Montreal, Quebec, who wrote us about his indie game company Double Stallion, and about this new game that he's releasing and how he's listened to the podcast to help him like do the new game, and not like we provided him game advice or anything, but that like we kept him company, for many crucial aspects of his life. And so I just wanted to give a shout out to Eric, and also I think he gave us some Steam codes as well. So appreciate that, Eric. And always glad if the podcast can be a part of your life. Wanted to read this email from a person named Speedy Gonzalez in Chicago, not his real name, who writes into slashfilmcast@gmail.com. I'm going through the extensive archive of podcast episodes with great satisfaction. In particular, finding it extremely fun to listen to your discussion and then getting inspired to watch the movie as a result. But your enthusiastic discussion convinced me to check out. I'm sorry. Let me do this again. I'm trying to like edit down this email without it being inorganic. Let me just do this one more time. This email comes from Speedy Gonzalez in Chicago, who writes in about a couple of matters. First of all, he wants to rebuke Jeff Kanata's unsullied lifestyle. He writes here about watching trailers, quote, "Let's just say I'm one of those people who, in eager anticipation of Season 7 of Game of Thrones, actively sought out and read through the entire season plot details leaked online, which turned out to be the actual plot details. My feeling is that the plot details are not really the crux of my enjoyment of the show as much as the actual execution of the details, how it's all rendered through acting, cinematography, music, action, and so on. We all know that for the most part, the good guys triumph in the end. The guy gets the girl, the ring gets melted, the monster gets spaced via warlock, etc. For me, by embracing the spoilers, I get to not only enjoy the period of previewing anticipation by imagining how it will play out, I then also get to enjoy seeing how it does, and I think with a vastly higher overall level of net enjoyment. Your perspective may be affected by watching a lot more movies, so novelty when it comes is desperately needed breath of fresh air. And in this age of sequels, prequels, reboots, rehashed awakenings, and pre-existing properties, so it is for all of us. I just think that life is too short to so vigilantly withhold from oneself that which one is interested in, especially on relatively inconsequential things like movie plots. Who knows how much time is left? Which brings me to the point of listening to podcasts at 140% speed. In an episode which touched on the subject, albeit more about watching TV shows in this way, you all expressed extreme disgust of the practice. In defense, all I have to say is that podcasts like the Slashfilmcast are like a really great spicy potato chip that you just want to eat up as fast and as much as you can. Because this kind of potato chip doesn't make you fat or give you a heart attack. It's just wonderful from start to finish. And in a world of so much noise and ugliness, being able to indulge in something so positive is a great thing. I'm not to the point where I watch movies or TV shows at accelerated speed, possibly because my TV does not have this feature, but I do watch YouTube this way. This may be a travesty, a valuing of quantity over quality, but I argue it is a matter of quantity and quality. Why not have cake and eat it too, or in this case, 40% more bags of potato chips?
Yeah. I will say a lot of movies are broadcast faster on network TV channels, and it's not great. It really kills movies, so, you know.
By this guy's own analogy, he's hoisted on his own petard. His own analogy is, why not have 40% more potato chips? There are lots of very good reasons why you shouldn't have 40% more potato chips. Okay. We'll get to the first point.
Let's not even get to the first point, because I think we've already argued about like different strokes for different folks. If you don't want to watch trailers, you know,
I
that's
was going
fine.
to tell this guy, I was going to say, you do you, man.
Yeah,
you do you.
You do you.
You want to do spoilers? You do you. But then he made the second point, and now I have to be very clear with him and say, you are a monster. And if you're listening to my voice at 40% faster speed, let me be clear. You are a monster. All right? So I wanted you to hear that very clearly. You're a monster, and you need to stop it. Stop it. Fewer potato chips.
Fewer potato chips. Well, you know, remember the last time there were magical potato chips, right? The no-fat potato chips. What did we have to look out for? Anal leakage. I like that was perfectly timed together.
It's true, yeah.
We all remember anal leakage.
Listening to podcasts too quickly is the anal leakage of podcast
your
listening.
ears. Yeah, your ears. It'll leak out.
Just looking out for you, man. I don't want your anus to leak.
All right, Jeff, how are you going to make that transition?
Speaking of looking out for you, hey, we want to look out for your sleep as well. You guys have heard me talk about Casper mattresses before. That's because we got Casper mattresses. We're so pleased to have gotten Casper mattresses because it is the easiest way to improve your sleep. Casper is a brand that makes expertly designed products to help you get your best rest. And nothing is more important to me these days than getting a good night's sleep. Casper products are they mimic the human curve. They provide support and comfort for all kinds of bodies. And chances are you need to upgrade your mattress. Why not do it the easiest way possible? Casper offers a variety of mattresses, the Wave and the Essential, as well as their original brand. And they have all kinds of options for you. They're affordable prices because Casper cuts out the middleman and sells directly to you. You don't have to worry about a big box store or the price is actually lower because it's all online, which is how everything should be. Why do I want to go someplace and buy something? I can do it in the comfort of my own home. But you say, well, what if I don't get the right thing? Well, Casper's got your back, you see. They've got a 100-night guarantee. You can sleep on a Casper mattress for 100 nights before you make your decision. If you decide you don't like it, if you decide it's not for you, they'll come to your house and they'll pick it up. They call it hassle-free returns. If you're not completely satisfied, it's hassle-free. Plus, it's delivered right to your door. And it comes in this really cool packaging. You slice it open, it unfolds, it unfurls, it blossoms like a flower right into your house. It's great. There's over 20,000 reviews with an average of 4.8 stars across Casper, Amazon, and Google. This is internet's favorite mattress. Don't take my word for it. Check it out. Give yourself 100 nights to sleep on it before you make your decision. A third of your life is spent sleeping, so you should be comfortable. And hey, we're going to give you $50 towards select mattresses by visiting Casper.com/filmcast and using Filmcast at checkout. That's Casper.com/filmcast and promo code Filmcast for $50 towards select mattresses. Terms and conditions apply. Give it a shot.
Let's move on. I want to tell you a story this week of what happened to me, gentlemen. I woke up on Thursday morning.
That's your first mistake.
Yep, I know. It really, it really was, Jeff Kanata. No joke. And I was feeling really off. I was just like, something is not quite right. Like, my legs hurt. I felt dizzy moving around. I just like something's not quite right. But I had like 2 meetings that day. I had like 2 important meetings I had to get to at around like 11:30 time period at work. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to go to work, do the meetings, and then call a sick day in for the rest of the day. Go to work, get to work at like 8 o'clock. And it's like 10:45 rolls around, and I say to my coworker, "Hey, I was like, hey, I'm probably gonna take the rest of the day off after these meetings, just letting you know." And then, like 10 minutes later, I said to my coworker, "You know what? I'm not gonna make it. Not gonna make it." I just took the Uber home. Later that evening, I had a fever of over 100 degrees, so I got sick yet again. Gentlemen, I don't know what is happening to me. I think it might be something.
It could be your relaxing work style, Dave. Just like the waves of relaxing time.
Too relaxed.
Yeah, I think I'm too relaxed. That's right. I you know what? Here's another thing, Devindra. Not enough stuff to do. I think that's also.
Fill up that calendar.
Between the corporate job and the podcasting, I think it's just not enough things I have going on in my life. So anyway, I've been basically bedridden. I've left the house like twice, to get groceries. And actually, one of the times I left was to go see this stupid movie, The Predator, that we're going to review today. But anyway,
I would say being slightly feverish and out of your mind is probably a good way to see this movie. So, yeah.
So I was like completely incapacitated for several days, and fortunately, I was too in bad shape. I was in such rough shape. I couldn't go into work. But I have a projector that projects onto my ceiling, and I was just lying in bed all day.
For just this occasion.
For just the occasion of when I literally can't move. Literally, my entire body is in excruciating pain, and I can only face in one direction, but still want to enjoy the latest titles on video on demand. And so I binged the entire season 5 of BoJack Horseman. We're going to probably talk about that in a separate bonus episode, but for now, just know that it's very good and make some interesting points about the present-day Hollywood and how it handles, let's say, bad men. So really want to encourage people to watch that show, which is a show I still love. A lot of people questioning, like, oh, I watched the first few episodes and I wasn't a fan. Should I continue watching? Definitely. BoJack Horseman, worth the time. But the thing I want to talk about today is American Vandal Season 2. Have any of you seen any of American Vandal Season 2?
Not yet.
No.
Jeff, have you?
No, I have not. I haven't even seen Season 1. I know you both recommended it very highly.
Oh, Jeff.
I
love it.
Okay, so I will tell you my journey with Season 1. I'll recap it really quickly, which is that I started watching American Vandal. I was like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. This should be a 5-minute Funny or Die video instead of a 4-hour Netflix series. And I stopped watching it. And then everyone like Devindra kept on me. He's like, you got to go back, check this out. Because I thought, when I watched the first 5 minutes, I was like, I've gotten everything I need to get from this show in 5 minutes. Like, I already know what it's trying to do in 5 minutes. And I was very, very wrong. This show is excellent. The first season won a Peabody Award. So it is very well regarded. And
very prestigious award.
Yeah.
For,
do you know what the
dick drawings?
That's right. Do you know what the premise of the show is, by the way, Jeff?
I do, yes.
Yeah. So the first...
I neglected to mention it, but I am stuck in that period that you just referenced of having watched the first 5 minutes and shutting it off. And then I'm in a much longer, the longer valley state of hearing everyone say, you have to watch it, you have to watch it. And for you, that period was short, and for me it's been much longer because I'm like, really, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna watch it.
You totally should. So the first season is about these high schoolers who they happen upon this crime of a student who has been accused of drawing dicks on dozens of faculty cars, right, and has been expelled as a result of that. And they're trying to get to the bottom of who drew the dicks. So that's kind of like a meme, is who drew the dicks. The inciting incident of the second season is like basically a whole separate case, and they cover an event called the Brownout, which is a bunch of students at a school in the Seattle area being poisoned with laxatives and crapping all over the place.
Oh man!
So
highbrow humor is what we're talking.
Okay. Here's the thing. This is what I want to say about the show, Jeff. Is the initial crime that starts off both of these seasons is extremely dumb and gross and stupid.
How do we follow up dicks?
Hold on. You didn't let me finish my sentence. You didn't let me finish my sentence. I was going to say the initial crime that starts both of these seasons is extremely dumb and silly and stupid. Semicolon. Everything else in the show is deadly serious. Like,
it's more like what if that silly crime was treated like the plot of Serial?
Right, that's right.
I do not doubt
it's so good. Good.
I'm merely making fun because I think it's funny to describe a Peabody Award-winning show.
Yes,
it's like, okay, we did dicks and we won a Peabody. What can we possibly do next?
Let's go for the Pulitzer.
Shit. There's shit. Maybe shit.
But they only use the crap as a jumping off point, right? They only use it as a way to explore all these other things that they're interested. Specifically, this season they talk about things like code switching. They talk about things like cyberbullying. This is aside from searching, American Vandal has probably the smartest and most accurate depiction of social media usage I've seen on screen this year, and there's so many issues that are addressed in a smart way. On top of that, they're completely nailing the style of podcasts like Serial, Making a Murderer, and The Jinx. This season in particular is heavily inspired by Errol Morris, and the reenactments are spot on. And they have what appears to be dozens of unknown actors whom these showrunners, every episode is directed by Tony Yacenda. They have dozens of unknown actors who they are getting naturalistic performances out of, despite how ridiculously silly this premise is. Like there is the temptation to like mug for the camera or like play it not super seriously must have been enormous, and they were able to resist that throughout the course of the entire season. So I think American Vandal Season 2 is awesome. It's a huge achievement. And I'll just say this one last thing about it, which is because like they don't want to describe it as a mockumentary, because if you compare like Christopher Guest to American Vandal Season 2 or Season 1, like Christopher Guest movies have a very kind of a familiar cadence to them, right? It's all like every interview with a wacky character feels like, set up, punchline. And they really wanted to avoid that. They didn't want it to be like a mockumentary. So if you watch the show, the most compelling thing is the mystery. Like you actually want to know who did these crimes. And because it's not real, the bar for making it interesting is even higher, right? If for a real crime, you can forgive like rough storytelling here and there because you're like, oh, maybe they couldn't get access to the library of blah 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 because it's like 5,000 miles away. Because it's a real crime. I feel like I'm more forgiving of a documentary if the storytelling is not super tight. In this case, they don't have that excuse, right? They're making up everything. So if the story is not great, then it's on them. And I thought they did a phenomenal job. So that's my argument for the show, Jeff Kanata. I hope you.
One thing I really enjoyed about Season 1 too is it's the depiction of high school life. Yes. I think that's what it really is. That idea where yeah, you're in this weird isolated community, right? And a little thing like who drew the dicks and who got probably expelled, which outside of this insular community doesn't really mean much. But to this community, it's like it's the biggest news. It's the most interesting thing that's ever happened there.
Not just
and
the biggest news; it has all these consequences for everyone around them. Like one person is expelled, and their family has their hearts broken, and their relationships that they're in are affected. You see how like one action affects a community. So even though it is about dicks and shit, this is one of the most brilliant shows on television, and
it's a metaphor for life. Yeah,
I think it's worth checking out. So that's American Vandal season 2. I also wanted to give a shout out to Dunkirk. Saw it in 70mm this week at the Cinerama, and it was a fantastic experience.
Nice.
In my opinion, I still prefer the IMAX experience because there's just more of the image that you can see in IMAX. But yeah, Cinerama is having their 70mm film festival. I actually met a listener, Josh from Seattle, Washington, said hi to me in the lobby, said he's a fan of the podcast, so wanted to give a shout out to Josh. But yeah, Dunkirk, stray observations on Dunkirk. The editing, so it is a massive cinematic achievement. The way that he was able to like gather all these extras together and create these stunning tableaus, like there's some like all-time greatest shots right in this movie of you see like a group of like 10 soldiers walking towards this boat in the distance, and it's like the most beautiful thing you've ever seen, and also the frame represents their isolation in the midst of this horrifying and punishing environment. The way this movie is shot is gorgeous and compelling, and it continues to remain this like achievement that rattles me whenever I watch it. So it's amazing, and if you have a chance to check it out on the big screen, I'd highly recommend it.
Yeah.
The editing still annoys me. I know this movie won an Oscar for best editing, but it like cuts between these stories in a way that just completely rips me out of like I'm thinking about the editing instead of like being caught up in the emotion of these moments, and so still bothered.
It's his
by that.
language, right? It's a very like specific Nolan-esque way of editing, and I think just watching all his movies, I forget if I talked about this, but I saw Dark Knight in IMAX a couple weeks ago as well.
How was it?
And that was an experience, right? First of all, I don't think I ever got to see it on IMAX in the big screen, originally, and just having that experience is great. But also what's interesting to me is like I can understand that movie better now because we've seen Interstellar and we've seen Dunkirk, and I do think like to a certain degree like Nolan has been fashioning his own cinematic language, and it's it's not always easy to parse. It's kind of love it or hate it, but I think what he's doing with editing is really interesting. So like this is a guy that's basically trying to change things that have been fundamental to cinema since like since silent film. The language of editing itself is changing, or at least he's changing it. It's strange. It's weird. It feels different. But watching The Dark Knight now, it's funny how much easier it is to understand and parse like what's actually happening. And also still worth doing. Like whenever they do any of these big screen revivals, get out there. Go check it out, because these are rare moments, and watching these movies at home will never recapture that.
It's definitely a bold choice, what is happening in terms of the editing. So I'm not going to say it was due to incompetence. It was clearly like they're trying to go for something where they're cutting between like, okay, here's like one dude drowning in one story. Now we're going to cut to these other dudes drowning in this other story. Like, don't you see the parallels? Like that's what's happening with the editing. And I'm just not a fan of the editing of the movie. Yeah. And finally, I cannot help but think that opening sequence where they show you the text on the screen, right? So the text on the screen, it says "The Mole 1 week." Then it says
you could be a little more specific.
It says the sea 1 day, the air 1 hour, right? And so it's showing you 3 different locations, and then it's saying the amount of time that is going to be depicted in this film, and I just feel like it is so frustrating that like I know what it's talking about, but even watching it again, I'm like, first of all, it's on screen for literally like 5 seconds, right? So if you look down to get your popcorn, you've missed it. And then the fact that he calls one of the locations the Mole, when in at least American English, that term has many definitions. It's almost unforgivable, but not quite. It's a very minor nitpick in what is otherwise one of the greatest achievements of the 21st century in cinema. So, anyway. But it just kind of, Devendra, to your point, it just kind of that opening like text is kind of like Christopher Nolan's marching to the beat of his own drum. Like he doesn't give a crap about whether the audience comprehends what he's doing. He's just going to do his own thing, So
it's Christopher Nolan putting on sunglasses and saying, "Deal with it."
Yep,
basically.
Yep,
and that's pretty much it. I just got Dunkirk on 4K Blu-ray, by the way, and I don't even know how to watch it. Honestly, like it's do I just put it in and watch on my TV? But it's not the same. Like, what's the point, really? Mainly for the sound. I got it for the sound.
Yeah. Fair enough. So that's what I've been watching this week. Devendra Harder, what have you been watching this week?
A couple of things. Mainly, though, I want to talk about Forever, the new show on Amazon, co-created by Alan Yang, who's had a really good run lately between like Master of None. He's also a writer on The Good Place. This is a new show that has a really interesting premise, and I guess they've been trying really hard to keep what the show is actually about a little bit of a secret. So I'll say, it's a relationship comedy starring Fred Armisen and Maya Rudolph as a married couple. They've been married for a long time, and it's starting to feel like, that what they're going through is just like living life in a repeated way, right? They've been going out too long. And it's kind of dealing with all those relationship issues. Can't really say much more about the show. It is kind of interesting, though. Like, I'm 3 episodes in, and it's like only now do we get the premise, basically. Like, it's kind of ballsy and kind of risky in that way.
When does it premiere?
It's already out. It's on Amazon Prime right now. Okay. Yeah, I think it premiered on Friday. But I love these actors, and Maya Rudolph in particular, like, who is fantastic. And I want to see her in more things. She's one of the funniest people alive right now. Fred Armisen, I like him. He's not somebody I think that can ever play a normal person. I think at this point, like just between everything, this is a show that tries to place him as like a mild-mannered dentist. And I just can never believe him in that. So that's one like knock against it. But, so far it's a funny show. I think it's really incisive about relationships and kind of how long-term relationships work. And, great to see Maya Rudolph in something, starring in something, honestly. So yeah, check it out. Definitely worth a watch. Stick with it at least 3 episodes to really understand what's happening, though.
Hey, Devendra, how long have you been married? Just out of curiosity.
It's been 5 years. We actually just celebrated our anniversary, our 50-year anniversary, and we saw Mandy for that. So that was kind of perfect.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Congratulations. But just wondering, because the couple in Forever has been married for, I think, 14 years.
Oh, yeah. Well, my wife and I, we've been together for basically 15 years.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. So
it feels like.
Yeah. So like, there's probably a lot in the show that might have resonated,
Yeah.
But anyway, the show is Forever, and it is available now on Amazon Prime. And you should check it out if you have a chance.
Yeah. And also, by the way, shout out to Jack Ryan, which I talked about a couple of weeks ago before it premiered. But it is fantastic. Go watch that too.
Awesome. Jack Ryan, also on Amazon Prime. Note that I work for Amazon Prime, and I cannot comment on any of those shows.
I can say anything, and Dave just cannot respond.
Other than great. I do feel okay telling you to watch those shows, though, because you should check them out. But anyway. Here's what I'll say. I'm really glad you're enjoying them, Devendra. That's awesome. So
I could say I think the media rollout of Forever is kind of insane and kind of borderline ridiculous. And who the hell is involved with this? I don't know. Crazy people.
Who are the ad wizards that came up with this?
All right. So Jeff Kanata, you been watching anything?
I have finished Ozark season 2, and I think you and I are going to talk about it at the end of this episode, right?
Yeah, so we'll do a little After Dark about Ozark season 2 where we can spoil the entire thing. So stay tuned for that.
I will just say that it is excellent, and if you like season 1, you're going to love season 2, like me. But what I also can talk about is our sponsor, Sonos Beam. Hey, you know that we love Sonos. You've probably heard us talk about Sonos. We think Sonos is the top-of-the-line home theater audio. And if you've heard Devindra talk about it for ages, all of us agree audio is a huge part of your viewing experience whenever you're at home. Everybody thinks about getting that big screen, getting that 4K, getting that HDR. Yes, yes, yes. But audio is a transformatory experience. It is just as important. And the Sonos Beam, the new Sonos Beam, is a smart, compact sound bar for your TV. It doesn't take up a lot of space, but it puts out a huge amount of wonderful, wonderful sound. You guys got your Sonos Beams, right?
Indeed.
Oh, yeah.
Indeed. Huge fan.
It's incredible. And the coolest thing, so I've been a fan of Sonos for a long time. I've had Sonos for a long time. One of the huge rollouts, I think last year, was the integration of Amazon Alexa in it. I have an Echo at home, and I was so excited to be able to control my Sonos speakers with my Echo. Sonos Beam has Alexa. I shouldn't say her name. Sorry, everybody. I just activated your.
Yeah, one of the maybe just call it the Amazon cylinder or something like that. One of the best things.
Echo. It's a listen. Don't inject your Amazon corporate shill into my perfectly good ad.
Also, Echo can technically be a wake word. That's the only reason. But whatever you want to say, Jeff, is fine.
All right. Well, it doesn't have a cylinder built into it. I'm sure there's no cylinder built into it, but it has the functionality built into the Beam.
No, hold on. Let's take that back a little bit because I don't think we got the entire thing. Like, I don't know if I can edit that to be one of your favorite things is the ability to control it with Amazon cylinder.
Your voice. It's got Amazon Alexa built right into it. It's so awesome. So you can control it with your voice. You can use AirPlay to enjoy sound on your Beam while you're watching video on your iPhone or iPad. So it literally can give you like incredible sound while you're watching a phone or your iPad. It's awesome. It is awesome. What have you guys been using yours?
Yeah, totally. Big fan. My wife's been using it during workouts to like blast workout music.
Yes.
It's awesome.
So easy to set up. It's just a single cord, syncs with your existing remote. It's the perfect size. It's not intrusive. It's the top of the line. It's the best of the best. So order your Beam now at Sonos.com for just $399. We love ours. We think this is the best way to enjoy audio in your house. I'm super in love with my Sonos. So do it. Connect your Sonos speakers, Wi-Fi anytime. Works great.
Okay, there's no call to action or coupon on that one, Jeff?
Order Beam now at Sonos.com for just $399.
Okay. All right. All right, before we move on to our review of The Predator, we got to thank all the people who donated to the podcast this week. Thanks to Linda Mui. Thanks to Joshua Davis from Seattle, Washington. Thanks to Belinda Preno and Jenny Nam for your contributions. All the money you donate goes to help us to defraying the cost of seeing movies and putting on this show for you. You can always donate by going to paypal.me/filmcast. That's paypal.me/filmcast. Or go to slashfilm.com, use the Slashfilmcast tab, use the PayPal links on the side of the page. We really appreciate everyone who donates. Of course, do not donate if it in any way causes you problems or affects your livelihood in any way. But if you are able to donate, we really appreciate it. Thanks to all our donors this week. You're awesome. Let's get to our review of The Predator. That was from the trailer for The Predator, the new film directed by Shane Black. I'm going to read the plot summary from IMDb. When a young boy accidentally triggers the universe's most lethal hunters return to Earth, only a ragtag crew of ex-soldiers and a disgruntled science teacher can prevent the end of the human race. So I think it's fair to say that we're all fans of Shane Black here, right? I mean,
yeah.
We've appreciated his films, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang,
Iron Man 3 is
Iron
awesome.
Man 3, The Nice Guys. And talking just about Shane Black's filmography here, obviously there were unfortunate circumstances surrounding the filming of The Predator that, you know, Shane Black has apologized for. Olivia Munn put herself out there and should be praised for what she did in order to bring attention to this important issue. So let's just make
it's
that
more
clear.
like the aftermath that was also super annoying too, because people weren't really supporting her in that. But slowly, the support came in.
Yeah. So Shane Black did a bad thing, took responsibility. Olivia Munn should be admired for taking a stand against movie studios hiring sexual predators, which, you know, or was he a sexual? I don't think sexual predator is the correct term, but
I think you could classify them as such, and at least certainly not hiring them for movies that have kids in them. Not great. Not great.
Hold on, let me just do that one more time.
Probably not the phrase you want to use because the movie's called Predator.
Yeah.
I think that, honestly, knowing Shane Black, I wonder if this was some weird sick joke on him. But yeah, I don't know.
Well, he's used this guy before.
Yeah.
Olivia Munn should be praised for taking a stand against movie studios hiring sex offenders in their movies, which it's unfortunate that needs to even be done, but we are grateful to her for doing that. So anyway, this movie kind of is released under this cloud of attention of this issue that's not great, not a great look for the movie, especially given that the movie itself is called The Predator. But given all that, looking at the film and looking at Shane Black's filmography, can we say that this is a film that was worthy of his talents? Jeff Canada, what do you think?
No. What even is this movie? What is this movie? It doesn't. What specifically? What is Thomas Jane doing in this movie?
He just wants his kids, man. No, that's an Arrested Development reference. Anyway, it does have a very good cast, right? You know, you got Keegan-Michael Key in there, you got Trevante Rhodes, you got all these awesome actors.
Which is exactly what you want for a Predator movie, by the way. You want a ragtag group of people you actually care about and actually would like, you know, watching, fighting aliens and stuff.
Well, the thing about Predator, right, is the '87 Predator is the idea is these guys are the most badass of the badasses, right? They ain't got time to bleed. They are the supreme badasses of all time, and they encounter something that's more badass than them, right? Simple. Very, very simple premise. What if you took the guys who can handle anything and find something that they can't handle? That's a very simple premise. What is even the premise of this movie? It is so so convoluted and weird. And I mean, I loved the fact that Shane Black put a little kid adult relationship into Iron Man 3. I thought that kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And it really worked. It was
even though
great.
It's a thing he does again and again and again. Like that is a thing for him, but it works in that movie.
Yeah, in that movie, it's great, and you have a really wonderful relationship because Robert Downey Jr. is magic, and you know it really humanizes him, and it's a strange take, but it totally works. This time, Jacob Tremblay, who's clearly an excellent young actor, it is shoehorned. It's weird. The whole movie feels like this callback to the 80s in all the worst ways.
More Predator 2 than Predator, I guess. Yeah,
it fetishizes killing and murder in a way that sort of has fallen out of fashion. You know, like killing is super cool and funny. You know, it's funny to murder people. And I feel like that's this anachronistic thing that maybe worked in the 80s when you had Schwarzenegger and Stallone racking up body counts in movies, but I think we're in a different time, and it just plays oddly when people make jokes about shooting someone dead for no reason. The humor all feels very, very strange. The logic of the Predators is odd. We should probably just get to spoilers as soon as we can, because there's a lot to talk about specifically. But this movie is straight up bad. It is not a good movie.
Devendra Hardawar, take us through it.
I will say I really like the first half of this movie until it starts to devolve into like a mess. And I think you can really tell, I've heard the stories about reshoots and the studio like kind of wanting to change things up. This movie feels like something the studio, hacked up to make it more consumable or something. And I think there are traces of good ideas, especially in terms of how it handles some of the predators. There's some really cool myth building here. And, I don't know if it was Shane Black second guessing himself or the studio not really wanting to go with that full vision. I don't know what it is, but yeah, the second half of this movie is a complete mess.
Yeah.
Feels kind of lazy. Really, this is a movie where you want all the damn set pieces, and they really aren't there. And then it gets to a point where things are like, the editing feels so bad. Like we talk about, Dunkirk's choppy editing, but at least I feel like every cut in that movie is purposeful. You know why it's there. Whereas this one, people change locations in reasons you don't know, like just a lot of things. People get new weapons all of a sudden for no reason.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
It becomes like Saturday morning cartoon in a way. It really reminds me of like G.I. Joe, like when I used to watch G.I. Joe as a kid. And that just feels like bad editing. So this is certainly Shane Black's worst directed movie, and it's a shame because there's a lot of potential here. I love the cast. I actually think Olivia Munn is doing fantastic work here too.
I agree.
Because typically I feel like when they cast a really attractive woman in a scientist role, they play it for laughs, and they really they don't really give that character much to do. Whereas here, she is kind of she's the MVP of this movie, alongside Sterling K. Brown, who's just like awesome in everything. I didn't really expect him to. I thought he was going to be like a part of this team, but it's a little different. He's somebody who knows exactly what movies he's in, and he just really gets that tone down. Trevante Rhodes,
his character makes no damn sense.
His character doesn't make any sense because it clearly feels like, oh, you rewrote like two characters into this one or something. But yeah, beyond that, like I love the group. I love the guys. I love Thomas Jane and what he's doing.
Really?
Yeah. Well, it's more like first of all, I like Thomas Jane in general, so I'll watch anything he does. But they try to build up this relationship with him and Keegan-Michael Key's character. I think there's a really poignant shot towards the end with them that's really well done. It's just that there's so much chopped up in terms of what this movie was, maybe at one point, that it doesn't feel like there's much connective tissue there. I could just watch a movie of these guys dicking around, and I think that would be more interesting than trying to shoehorn in, a big weird Predator plot that the studio wanted.
So here are the 3 crimes of the Predator that I will outline, and then we can dive into the spoilers. Overall, I agree with Devindra. I think, the first half of this movie, I'm still like, okay, I heard this movie was a catastrophe, but I'm watching it, and it's at least not boring. It's not completely horrible.
Yeah.
But then, the third act really goes off the rails. I still think it's completely fine. I don't think it's like there's other movies like let's say Fantastic Four or Justice League that I think clearly the studio tampering in my opinion was far worse on those films than with this movie. Like that is my opinion. You might have a different opinion, but like from my perception, I watched Fantastic Four and I'm like there's so much that has clearly been changed about this film. And there's so much that's been changed about The Predator as well. Let's be clear, but I just think it's like slightly less obvious. But here are the crimes of The Predator. Number one of the things that made the first Predator great, in addition to John McTiernan's awesome directing, is Arnold Schwarzenegger. That was one of his defining roles, right? And that movie has etched its way into popular culture with lines like "Get to the chopper" and so on. And you need you want someone hyper charismatic.
Hey, Dave, who do I have for you? Boyd Holbrook.
Here's the thing. I actually like Boyd Holbrook, but the internet seems to enjoy taking a huge shit on that guy all the time. I don't know why. But I'm a fan. But even me, being a fan of Boyd Holbrook, I do not think he equals the charisma of Arnold Schwarzenegger in Predator 1, and that is that's a problem for this movie, in my opinion. Like I just you don't have one of those indelible performances and presences that's going to anchor this film.
I really wish The Rock would take roles that would kind of dirty up his clean image a little.
Right.
Maybe I think the dirtiest thing he's done is the Fast and Furious movies, and even then he became the good guy.
Remember when he did Doom though?
Yeah.
This
He
would
was a
this
guy.
I agree. Like this would have been a better. I would have rather seen The Rock in this than in Skyscraper.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's one of the issues of this movie. Another issue with this movie is that there is some. Shane Black does a great job at commenting on and deconstructing the genres in which he's making films. And there is this line towards the beginning of how, these when I watched Predator when I was a kid, I was like, oh my gosh, this thing, the creature effects of this thing, Stan Winston, this thing looks terrifying. I'm scared of this thing, right? It's plausible to me how this thing can kill all these extremely trained military men. And I find this creature scary, and the fact that it's called the Predator makes complete sense to me. It's only when I got older and started thinking through the implications of what was happening that I came to the conclusion that the characters in this film itself came to, which is like, this thing should not really be called a predator. A predator kills because it has to. This guy is killing for sport. This is like one of those people, like a tech bro or a stock market dude that goes to Africa to shoot, rhinoceri in a reserve or something like that.
Yeah, but this movie is so proud of itself that it made that came to that conclusion. It will not get off that. It's like, okay, we get it. Yeah, I found it to be cloying and grating.
I disagree.
That it constantly was making those kinds of observations.
I wish it had made
honestly.
more of those observations. I wish it had been like a complete deconstruction of the form instead of just like here's a few nods towards it. So my issue is, and certainly if you look at what this movie was supposed to be, ScreenRant.com has done like this great deconstruction of all the stuff that was taken out. The movie was originally supposed to be much more bonkers insane than it ended up being. And I'm disappointed that vision never reached the big screen. # release the Shane Black cut. But finally, I just think this movie's action is bad. A lot of it is shot at night, so you can't tell what's happening. Some of the CG is terrible. I think when you watch it at home, it will look like actively terrible CG. Like it will look like you can't believe this was in a major studio release, that this movie has this level of visual effects. My guess is a lot of that is because of time. My guess is because they did a lot of reshoots. They restructured the entire film. There's a ton of stuff in the trailers that never made it into the final. And so I think they were up against the wall, and they had to release this movie without polishing the CG to the extent it should have been. And as a result, there is not a single memorable action sequence in this film, in my opinion. So those are my issues with this movie. I don't think it's very good. I don't think you should go to see it in a movie theater. I don't think you should pay to see it at all. I think maybe when this comes on HBO or Showtime or Netflix or Amazon Prime, catch it then.
And that, by the way, that is the way I feel like I grew up watching movies like this. Right. So that feels appropriate. Although I would have really loved to see the original Predator in theaters. Yeah. Oh well.
All right, let's get the spoilers for The Predator starting right now. All right, Jeff, you seem to have a lot of problems with this movie.
Yeah, I got a lot of problems with this. I don't even know where to start. I'm going to start with Thomas Jane, who evidently has Tourette's, because Tourette's is a still hilarious thing that we can make fun of. Yeah. But as far as I can tell, the only reason that Thomas Jane has Tourette's in this movie is to get Olivia Munn to say "eat my pussy." That's the only thing that literally it's completely dropped. His disorder, as it is completely dropped.
The second half of the film, he does not have Tourette's at all. So I feel like pretty really large oversight on the film.
There is no plot point. There is no moment. There is no reason for him to have it other than that one hacky joke sequence to get Olivia Munn to say that phrase, and it felt gross.
Well, this movie commits two crimes when it comes to the differently abled, Jeff. One is Tom Jane has Tourette's only for laughs, and the other is being autistic apparently gives you superpowers.
As it does.
I thought no actual manifestation of autism. It's like he's just smart. And that's they just tell the audience he has autism over and over again. It's really kind of insulting.
It's very bad.
They show it in the first scene. Like, I will say, to the movie's credit.
Devindra, you mean the first scene when the fire alarm goes off and he is freaking out because it's too loud. But then later on in the film, when there's gunfire everywhere and people are dying, he's completely fine.
Totally fine. It's totally fine with him at that point.
No
but
issues there.
I will say
Also,
the movie,
we watch him.
Sorry. Jimmy Jong in the chat room is correcting us. It is Asperger's, not autism. Just want to make that clear.
Is that not a
On the
subset?
spectrum.
One of the subsets.
It's on the spectrum. Yeah.
But also, he straight up murders someone. That little boy. We watch him murder a person for throwing a rock at him. I guess.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't do it.
He doesn't do it. The mask does,
dude. But he certainly does not respond to it in a good way, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. A number of other things. I mean, the list is long, and I mean, this movie is
okay. You're saying Sterling K. Brown's character made no sense, right?
Yeah.
So tell me why he makes no sense.
He. Where to start? He's a cartoon. He's a two-dimensional cartoon of a person. I loved his performance. I will agree with Devendra there.
Very delicious.
Like he's chewing the scenery.
Well,
but
also chewing things. Yes, in the movie.
Yeah, he literally chews the scenery. I mean, he chews and his scenery all the time. He makes comments about this mystery as if he knows all this stuff. His whole organization doesn't make any sense. They've built this like. Every decision that organization has made is the stupidest decision they could possibly have made at any given time. Like, we're gonna display all of the weapons in a display case for some reason.
Listen, what would you do with alien technology, Jeff? Just put it in a freezer, like put it in a storage room? No, it's never been seen on Earth before. Put it in a case.
Jeff, you are building a top secret underground bunker, right?
Right.
You're building a top secret. It's like 500 feet underground. You also separately have top secret alien technology, right? What are you gonna do? Hide that light under a bushel? No, you gotta display it for all the visitors that are coming into your top secret underground bunker.
You gotta get the government money.
Especially, this is especially a good idea because in the event that a predator comes to life and is able to
predator that you have displayed on your table, breathing and that
you have made no preparations to restrain. Right.
Or, was it? Well, he was restrained by like cloth straps or something. Like get some metal, guys. Like lock that thing down.
Like Hannibal Lecter is restrained more than that predator was. Literally, right?
Any time in a movie that anyone is breathing on a table and is sedated, they're waking up.
That's right. That's right. So especially if you have this predator who you have done a piss poor, a shit job of restraining on this table. If that predator were to come to life, you definitely want them to be able to reappropriate all their gear and wreak havoc on everyone, right? So why not
just have it on a table right next to them?
Yeah,
that's what we call Chekhov's predator.
You know what actually is the thing that pissed me off the most in this whole movie, and it's a stupid little thing, but it bugs the shit out of me. The original Predator. The big reveal was when the mask came off, he had that crazy mouth face thing, right? This movie, it just lets that be all the time. And the thing that pisses me off so much is we're constantly getting the Predator eye view of his digital readout and all the freaking, Terminator style Predator stuff from the first movie. And yet he's never wearing the mask. It's just like just his eyes now.
We're getting the remote view through the mask at certain points.
Well, we are, but also when he's not wearing the mask and he's walking around, we see him do stuff that the mask would do, but he's not wearing the mask. I'm like, that angered me very much.
Jimmy in the chat room says the Predator that you see strapped down to the table. Apparently, he was supposed to come down to Earth to help everyone, right?
Yes.
But he literally killed every human that he saw. Right.
Yeah.
But he's killing people so that he can give them the Predator killer.
It's like stop pointing guns at me. I'm trying to give you something, and I have to kill you.
I love the idea of having something called a Predator killer. Like it's in the files as the Predator killer. It's like us having something called the Human Killer. But also another thing that annoys me about this movie is that all of these 80s and 90s reboots, the Jurassic World did this. All of them are like, man, how do we? Okay, we got the Thing. All right, the Thing. Well, we saw the Thing in the other movies. How do we improve? How do we one up what people have already seen? Oh, I know. We genetically enhanced it to make it larger. It's the same thing, but bigger. That's bigger, right? That's more. People love more. It's the same stupid shit from Jurassic World where it's like, You like the T-Rex? What about the more than T-Rex that we made? It's the same stupid shit. It's like we genetically enhanced a bigger predator. This one's bigger than the predator, and we see it kill the regular sized predator, so it must be scarier than a predator because it's big predator. It's predator +1.
Predator Prime. Yeah.
Dumb.
I will say, like, the idea of a good predator, like, actually is, landing and everyone's like, trying to kill it. Like, no, I'm trying to help you, you idiots. That could have been a fun movie. And it seems like that was the direction they were going.
None
until,
of that
like,
happened.
None of that really happens. And then they say after the fact, oh, he was trying to help us while also killing a lot of people. So it's very confusing messaging there.
Yes, it is. Like, in retrospect, oh wow, that was a crazy plan, and it's really all to set up a sequel where we get a super suit. It's literally just all to set up a sequel, and it is so lame and so dumb. And it's fun to see original Predator, because it's a dude in a suit, and then we get like larger Predator, which is digital, and that's less fun.
It
no,
looks
I believe that is also a dude in a suit, Jeff. I believe it's
some of it
really large dude in a suit, is my understanding.
Yeah.
I think there are definitely scenes where he's all CG.
The CG is
no question, because some of that CG is pretty rough. But yeah, I believe like a lot of it is also done practically.
Some of it felt like the in-camera stuff where you just change the scale, but even then, like, doesn't quite work.
I think the scene. So I already alluded to this article at Screen Rant that kind of breaks down all the stuff that was supposed to happen in the movie. I'd recommend anyone reads it if they give a crap about this film. But the two biggest things that were cut out of this movie, it seems, are there was a moment when the good guys are supposed to team up with some predators, and like the predators are actually good at some moment, and like that's supposed to be like a cool moment that never happened in the movie. And then like there was also like supposed to be predator hybrids, like human predator hybrids that were all like freakish, that were supposed to be released at one moment. That seemed like a pretty big moment in the movie as well. So looking through all the changes that were ostensibly made, like those are the two big ones that stuck out to me. But yeah, the moment in this movie that I was like, something is not quite right about this, was when out of nowhere Sterling K. Brown gets a shoulder launcher.
Yeah. Like, wait a second. That's
like,
not right. Also, 5 seconds ago, you were all trying to kill each other. This does not work.
No, but they teamed up because they're like, but there was no.
I actually liked that moment. I thought that moment worked. I thought that
there
moment
was no. The issue is there was no connective tissue there. There was no like, hey, we have now made the decision together that we're not going to kill each other. Like there needed to be something
That's
there
a
of
good
like
dramatic scene. Yeah.
Yeah, there needed to be something of like, hey, let's put our differences aside, and it just really makes you wonder: was there a version of this movie where Sterling K. Brown was on the loony side? Like I'm very curious about that.
Yeah.
But it's who knows? Who knows? I don't know. I don't know. Also, apparently, and I couldn't tell because the scene was so poorly lit and shot. Sterling K. Brown kills himself with a shoulder launcher, I think is what happens.
It was really dumb. Yeah, it was so badly edited.
It's just like you just introduced the concept of shoulder launcher to this film, and then 3 minutes later, the character who has a shoulder launcher kills him. Like, we barely understood that this was a weapon, B, how it worked, and now we're supposed to understand that C, he killed himself with it. That just didn't. Something was wrong. That's not good.
Didn't predators always have shoulder launchers? Isn't that a predator thing?
They do,
the first movie?
But the way he got it was just like, here, by the way, you have this thing now.
So did he like appropriate it from? Like, there was never an explanation of how he got it.
Also, if you're a predator, if you're the badass race of predators that goes from planet to planet, like killing stuff, and the reason that you kill stuff is because your hat automatically does things despite what you want. Like that's literally the idea here, is that the predators are so badass, their hat will attack if they feel threatened.
Yeah.
Like, they're not doing anything. They're not involved in the decision at all. It's their hat that decides
behind them. That's all.
It's so dumb.
My question to you guys, what is better, this movie or 2010's Predators by Nimrod Antal? And I've been thinking about that. I actually
that is a good question.
I kind of want to rewatch it. I remember having a bit of fun. Like, it felt like a B sci-fi movie, like the sort of thing you'd expect from a Predator sequel, in this decade or something. That movie felt more cohesive than this one, at least.
I think you're right about that. Like, the banter and stuff in that movie probably wasn't as good, but that movie, for all of its flaws, and it does have many flaws in the storytelling. I think I was reading this article in The Atlantic about the movie Predators that was entitled something like 6 huge plot holes of this movie. There were a lot of problems with that movie in terms of like how it's called Suspend Your Disbelief: 6 Gaping Holes in Predator's Plotline. That was what the article was called, from 2010. Despite that, I still think it was, like you said, Devindra, a more cohesive experience. I think it doesn't feel like I've read people saying, like, people in this movie, The Predator, are referring to conversations that you, the audience, never saw.
Right.
I don't actually recall that happening in the movie when I watched it. But apparently it happened, and apparently that's a problem for this movie. So, anything else we want to say about The Predator, guys?
I did kind of like the score. It did feel like a nice callback to the original, sweeping score. At times it just felt like they were just reusing the theme, but I'm not as well informed in the scores enough to tell that.
I did not even remember that Alan Silvestri composed a score for the original Predator. And when I was listening to this, I was like, this sounds like Alan Silvestri. That was my reaction when I listened to this score, and I was like, oh yeah, it's not written by Alan Silvestri, it's by Henry Jackman, I believe. But it does sound extremely similar in a way that feels like a loving homage. So I also thought that the score was a good thing about this movie.
My favorite part was when at the end, when we have the touching burial of all of the things that are icons of characters that we never met and never knew and didn't know anything about. The pack of cigarettes that was Jimmy's. Remember Jimmy, who didn't appear in the movie at all? Oh yeah, and the this is a hula dancer. Oh yes, I'll never forget. Other Jimmy. Oh, the second.
I thought
Jimmy.
They were so that was not the Loonies stuff that was in the.
That was the Loonies stuff. Yeah,
I thought that was.
I thought that was his.
We spent the whole movie.
Crew.
We spent the whole movie.
But to your point, Jeff, I don't know that the movie does a good job of saying like why the Tootsie Roll Pop is like so significant to the Loonies characters.
I understood that to be his original crew. that
no,
he
no,
lost
no.
In the beginning of the movie.
I mean, who the heck even knows, Jeff? But my understanding was that was like that's like his new crew. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah,
right.
Yeah,
but it was nice of Olivia Munn to keep that aluminum foil dog through the whole action sequence and not get it squished.
Yeah, I mean, it was nice for Olivia Munn to be miles away from that spaceship, which is flying far away from her direction, only to appear at the last minute to save the day. That seems like it took a lot of skill. So
he's a superhero. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, again, I do think she was great in this movie, but that was a little insane what happened there at the end.
Man, it's so the first Predator, right? How does Schwarzenegger finally take down the Predator? It's by stripping everything away, right? It actually, there's something there. There's some pathos. There's some sense of using his brain and figuring it out and going mano a mano and just it's this primal thing. And this movie is it doesn't approach anything like, it doesn't even try for anything like that. There's the final way that the Predator gets taken down is his own arm is used against him. Okay. It's just, the movie is so
Incredible style, man. Incredibles. It's like, hey,
Very
the
lazy,
only thing that can penetrate it is itself.
Yeah.
Incredibles callback, Jeff.
It's like adamantium. Yeah. I have to say, I did appreciate the Jake Busey casting because it's nice to have a Busey, continue the line in the Predator franchise. Sure,
nice to have a Busey.
Nice to have Busey. Yeah,
he has the name of the Busey from.
I didn't like that part where Olivia Munn had to say, "Eat my Busey."
Davis walked away.
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to be in the final episode, Jeff. But,
funny joke. Funny joke. Eat my Busey.
But Jeff, to your point, I don't know if there was kind of this subplot in this movie of like, oh hey, if you don't have weapons, it won't attack you, kind of thing.
Right.
Like
right,
that was never followed up on either. Like there's a lot of little tiny things like that.
That is the good Predator plot line that we
Right.
kind of
And then
missed
there's this dog that
Yeah,
like
I was just gonna say that
dogs
there's
in-
so much effort put into this dog, and yet for what? I don't know. I don't even know why.
like, what was
the dog,
what was the payoff with the dog? I don't remember. Like the dog
I
showed
guess
up. At
it delivered the grenade at one point
Sure.
that saved
Yeah.
Olivia Munn.
but then it shows up again after. Anyway,
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense. Okay, I think we've spent enough time trying to figure this out. Movie's not good, and
good.
it shows evidence of studio tampering, but it's. I have to say, I didn't think it was like a terrible time at the movie. Like if I saw this on a cable TV one afternoon, I wouldn't be angry. You know what I mean?
This feels like a Netflix movie, basically, like something like that. Yeah.
Like I'd be angry if I watched Justice League. I'd be angry if I watched Fantastic Four. I wouldn't be angry if I watched The Predator. You know?
Sure.
I wouldn't feel like that was a 100% waste of my time. It's like an 80 to 85% waste of my time. You know?
Right.
So there you go. All right. Well, you can find more episodes of this podcast at slashfilmcast.com. Email us at slashfilmcast@gmail.com. Stay tuned to hear what we'll be discussing next week, and stay tuned to the After Dark to hear me and Jeff talk about Ozark. In the meantime, where can we find more of your work on the internet, Devendra Hardawar?
Oh, you can find me on Twitter. I'm at Devendra there, and I write about tech at Engadget.com. Check out my coverage of the new NVIDIA video cards coming up later this week.
How about you, Jeff?
I'm on Twitter at Jeff Kanata, which is spelled with 2 N's and 1 T, and I do a video game podcast called DLC. You can find that at 5by5.tv/DLC.
You can get emails from me. I try to send 1 or 2 emails a week at davechen.net/letters. That's davechen.net/letters. Okay, that's all for today. Next week, I think what we're going to be doing is reviewing Mandy, the new Nicolas Cage movie.
Yeah.
And I have heard it is very metal. So I'm looking forward to talking about it with you guys. So that's what's coming up for you on the Slashfilmcast. Thanks for listening. We'll see you later.
Cool.
All right, Devendra, peace out.
Good show, guys. Yeah, enjoy
Thanks.
Ozark Chat. Later.
Take care.
Bye.
I think you should just leave the Jake Busey joke in. I think it's funny.
Okay. I'll think about it. I would if there wasn't this other terrible stuff going on about that movie.
Fair enough. But I mean, she does have to say that line in the movie, and I think it's gross. And I made that point earlier.
No, I know. But and I agree with everything you said about that. It's not even. I don't even want to risk. I don't want to risk this podcast becoming a controversial, like, especially this of all movies. It's not worth risking anything, in my opinion. Okay, Jeff. Jeff Canada, let's talk about Ozark Season 2.
Yes.
So
good.
I don't know if I agree with you about this. I mean,
Really?
let's talk about overall thoughts. And should we say we're going to spoil Ozark Season 2, right? We're going to spoil everything from Ozark Season 2.
Yeah, we can say some general thoughts first, but yeah, we're going to talk in details.
Yeah. So Ozark Season 2, you seem to love it. I mean, I'll just say this. I got through this show in 3 days, right?
Yeah, so you must have hated it.
Well, I'm just saying, like, the show had to be doing something right for me to get through it in 3 days. It's not like there's no way it could be, in my opinion, bad if I got through it in 3 days. It does many things very well. I think the show is beautiful, like beautifully shot. Some people find the color palette, which is very cool and bluish, to be oppressive, and some people find the show to be very dark, literally. Like I think Todd Vanderwerf at Vox.com put together a 11 screenshot essay explaining why the show is too dark, like it's not lit well, and there are some instances where I actually think he's right, but I also think not every show needs to be lit the same. Like we already have plenty of shows. Like most shows are lit in one way, or a lot of shows are lit in very similar fashion, and then there's some that are like really extraordinary and take very different chances. And I think Ozark's look is very distinct. So I don't necessarily agree with Todd, but I think he does have a point. There are some shots that are like, whoa, why is the scene in the hospital? Why is there only like one tiny light in a hospital? Every hospital I've been in has been like flooded with fluorescent. You know what I mean? So like there are some scenes where it's like, okay, you're going over the top with the lighting, but overall, no problem with the look. I think the problem with season 2 of Ozark for me, Jeff, is that I just simply don't believe that these characters could have evaded being killed because of all the things that happened.
Which characters? The
Marty
the birds?
and Wendy Bird. Yeah, I just don't think it strains credulity too much for me.
Really?
That he would, that he would be able to talk his way out of being killed so many times, especially because you see people killed, like so many people die on this show for seemingly much less significant reasons, if that makes sense. Than the
seems like an odd criticism to me, but go ahead.
I don't think it's odd at all. I think the entire part of the appeal of the show is watching these people try to keep themselves alive.
Right.
Like that's the whole point.
And it certainly is not easy for them.
It's not easy, and that's the point I'm making is, it's like if you're watching someone trying to keep himself alive in an extremely dangerous situation, and there's like at least like 3 or 4 points where I'm like, okay, no, that would have definitely resulted in his death by now. These people defy the odds again and again in ways that I find to be increasingly implausible. Here's an example. Just an example. The Kansas City mob, giving is apparently the most forgiving mob ever depicted on screen in the history of television, right? When initially Marty Bird pisses them off, they don't kill him, and then he pisses them off again, and they blow up his office rather than killing him. I just don't and that's one out of 5 examples of times when Marty Bird has pissed people off, and I just don't think he would have been able to talk himself. I don't believe it.
Well,
I don't believe it.
Okay,
so.
Clearly the Kansas City mob is going to be season 3. That's the threat in season 3 is the Kansas City mob. So I don't think he's out of the woods there yet. The reason that he's not killed originally for them is because of what's his face, his downstairs basement guy. Can't remember his character's name.
Yeah.
Having a history with them, I think that's, and then also the death of that character, giving him some sentimental leeway, and also, I think Marty Bird's ace in the hole throughout, and the sort of premise of the entire show is that he's a very valuable thing to these people. He provides value. He launders their money, and so I think I bought at the end that the exploding office is meant to make something very clear. It's a message. It's not an attempted murder. They could murder him anytime they want. They stand to make a lot of money and make a lot of their constituents happy by securing those union jobs. And he, in season 3, is going to be stuck in that place of having promised 2 different groups 2 different things. Right. So yeah. I don't think it's in their interest to kill him. They're in their interest to scare him into getting that to be a union job. But I take your point. I think that's the fun of any of these kinds of shows, right? This is a genre now where it's sort of an everyman in an extraordinarily illegal situation, trying to, keep all the plates spinning, right?
Yeah, I mean, if Marty Bird was a character on The Sopranos, he'd be dead by now. I firmly believe that. But let me talk about one thing I liked about the show, and then I want to hear about more of your more things you liked, and then I'll bring up some other issues I had with it. I think Laura Linney is doing some of the best work of her career here, in my opinion. I think she is so good this season, and the entire season, you find out, Backdoor is about her. It's like a backdoor pilot for her ascension, right? It's like, this is the story. This is actually not the story of Marty Bird. This is the story of his wife and how she comes to terms with her power and rises to
Lady
power.
Macbeth.
Right.
This
is not even
season...
Lady Macbeth, I would argue. I would say more powerful than Lady Macbeth. She's forcing Marty into situations he doesn't want. Lady Macbeth
she has that wonderful monologue in the final episode of the season where she tells her kids why she cheated in the very first episode of the first season. And it's clear that she's talking about, being stagnant and not being the person she wanted to be. And it's clear that she has found that person. She wants to be a mover and a shaker. She loves the power and she likes this life. And I found that to be an extraordinary arc over 2 seasons. I thought that was beautifully slow played. And we see her, sort of embrace it over time, especially over the course of this season. I thought that was one of the strengths of this season, is how strong all of the women are. Ruth and Wendy and the Snell wife. All of them, I think, are the stars. It's really their stories this season. I thought it was extraordinary.
Yeah. So, and the question is, when she makes that call at the end of the season, do you believe it, right? And I actually did. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. I agree. It is a 2-season arc for that character. That's the one thing, in my opinion, that this season did extremely well. I think Laura Linney's character.
The one thing? So many things. Go ahead.
One of the few things, but I think that character is way more interesting than Marty Byrde, in my opinion. Marty Byrde, I feel like, has changed extremely little in seasons 1 and 2. He is frequently a character to whom things happen, and he's trying to keep all these plates spinning and do all this stuff. But I think go ahead.
Well, I think that's kind of the point, right? Is that his arc over the 2 seasons, such as it is from the disaffected, emotionally distant brain that can move numbers around and manage everything and stays cool under pressure and is super stressed but doesn't crack, to finding that emotion. And Wendy even says that to Marty in the final episode, is she says, I begged for you to be more emotional and I love you for that, for finding it, but I was wrong. I don't want you to be that guy. And he completely cracks after the killing of the preacher. And so I found that to be, again, a wonderful setup for season 3, because he, at the end, realizes he is married to someone far more vicious than he, and someone who is now reveling in the viciousness and the power that she has found. And he straight up turns to his daughter and says, if you want to emancipate, I won't stop you. He says to Wendy, I agree. We shouldn't be parents. We're horrible people. I think that's the place he's gotten to, is he'd been lying to himself the whole time, saying, hey, I'm just doing what I need to survive. And now has realized it's far worse than that they are criminals and they enjoy it to a certain extent. At least his wife does. And his son is starting to that cracking of the family is his arc, I think, realizing that.
No, that's a fair point. So tell me more about what you thought was really well done this season, Jeff.
Well, I love shows like this. I love the spinning of the plates. I love how they're going to get out of this one. I mean, I'm into these kinds of shows, and I think this is a particularly well plotted, well acted one of these kinds of shows. I mean, I think the performances across the board are wonderful. Julia Garner as Ruth is a particular standout. She's just great. Ruth Langmore. The Langmore family I find to be fascinating. The introduction of the father and his sort of chaotic trajectory that he throws everybody onto, and sort of his he's the wild card that causes a lot of things to go poorly, and how that all played out, I thought I was fascinated by. I think seeing the women take center stage and it being sort of Lady Macbeth's all the way down, it's just Lady Macbeth on Lady Macbeth, and the Snells and how it humanized them. I found the twists and turns of the season to be just as fun as the twists and turns of the first. I think the show can be described as Breaking Bad and Justified had a baby.
Right.
And those are two of my favorite shows of all time. So I think it lives up to that title. I think it's right there alongside those shows. And I also think the first season, I often described it as, what if you had Breaking Bad, but instead of lying to everybody, the guy just told the truth all the time. Like
Yeah.
in the first season, Marty just tells people the truth, which is like so interesting and fun. This season, not really. This season, it's
Yeah.
a web of lies that is constructed over and over and over again. But all of the stuff from season 1 still lingers, right? We still have the preacher, and that my heartstrings were tugged on that over and over and over again. That whole subplot I thought was really powerful, and I felt for that little baby. Obviously, I have a little baby at home, so maybe that affected me even more. But there's so much in this season that felt edge of my seat and thrilling, and what was going to happen and who was going to live and who was going to die. And I think there are big consequences. The show, to its credit, I think pulls the trigger on something that other shows would have probably slow played over even more seasons, which is the FBI guy who's been on their trail. Like, he felt like a guy who was going to be around season after season after season, and his subplot is handled in a weird way. He's a character I found creepy and gross the whole time, and even he is humanized by the end, which I thought was to this show's credit. My wife turned to me at one point and went, "Everybody I hate in this show, I end up feeling for." And I was like, yeah. I don't know. I really liked the ride of Ozark season 2, and they do that wonderful thing where it all feels like all you have to do is just get on the plane and you can have it all. And of course, no. You know, I love that. I love that dramatic device of you had it. All you had to do is walk out the door and something stopped it.
So, Jeff, you react with like complete shock that I seem to have reservations about this show. Are you familiar with the critical reception to Ozark? Like, I'm curious. It has a 66 on Metacritic.
No,
so I'm just curious.
You know, I don't pay attention to Metacritic.
Right. I mean, that's fine. I'm just saying. I'm just saying like
it doesn't comport with my
right.
experience.
That's okay. That's fair enough. I mean, I will say I watch the show. I really enjoy it. But I also like feel bad about myself afterwards, and I don't think I feel bad about myself in like the way that the show wants me to. Do you know?
Really?
Because I feel like, first of all, the show is so ridiculously over the top, in my opinion. I think everyone in the show is so evil, and I don't have the experience your wife had at all, or you had, of like, oh, everyone in the show, I end up feeling for them. I don't feel for like I don't think. Virtually no character in the show am I a fan of. Maybe Ruth Langmore. Maybe her, played by Julia Garner. But even then, that's like kind of on the bubble. Because everyone is so unpleasant and has done so many terrible things that attempts by the show to redeem them are unsuccessful for me. And so I think the show is just so over the top. And then like the idea of the pastor like taking them hostage and stuff, the idea that he would snap and do that, it's just, it's ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous.
Really?
I just, yeah.
You
keep saying really, Jeff. Spoiler alert. Anytime you say the question really, the answer is going to be yes. You know,
I don't mean to annoy you by it. I'm certainly, I'm expressing my surprise in a way that I felt to be clear to all.
Fair enough. But yeah, I mean,
I'm not doing it to annoy you. I am surprised that you would think that a man whose wife has been murdered, but everybody else says left him, and his child, and his business, which had been booming before he met these people, has been destroyed utterly, and then his child taken from him. He feels absolutely powerless. He knows only that these people are at the heart of it. He interpreted a warning from Wendy as a threat that then came to pass. His child is not with him. I could totally understand him doing something crazy and feeling like, yeah, I want to murder these people. I mean, if someone came and took my child away and murdered my wife and threw me into that kind of chaos, I don't know what I would do. I don't find that over the top. I found that to be pretty believable, actually.
All right, no, that's a fair point. You know, I don't know how I can dispute. Like, I'm trying to make a better argument other than I didn't find it believable, and it's a challenge. You know, I think that simply, I think what struck me is how opposite the polls were of what you see of that character, and I think like just showing someone do something really, really nice and then showing them doing something really, really evil, which is very reductive. What I'm saying, like the show shows you more than that, but like
which character you're talking about right now?
The pastor character, right? Is like in season 1 he's like very put together and very kind, and then in season 2 he's like he threatens the lives of our protagonists, and
there's a progression there, right? I mean, I stepped through it. I stepped through it just now. That his life has been utterly. He is a casualty of these people's greed, and he knows it, and no one else believes him. I mean, I found that to be a very compelling place to be in. He just brushed up against it and tried to do, and had, he had even admits it in that monologue in his episode. He had the what he considers to be the sin of pride, where he felt like he could take something that he knew deep down was wrong and make something good out of it. And what happened was he brushed up against these people for even a moment, and his life was utterly destroyed. And I found that to be like, I don't like him. Like as a character, I don't like the guy. I think he makes all the wrong choices, but I sympathize with him.
Okay. So I'll drop this point. I think you've made a really great argument, Jeff. I will also say, to the show's credit, that character subplot did lead to one of the most haunting scenes I've ever seen on television in all the time that I've been watching it, which is at the end of season 1, when the one episode you see him with his pregnant wife, and the next episode he comes home and there's just a baby on the table.
Yeah. And
the baby's alive and it's crying and it's completely clean, right?
Yeah.
There's no sign of trauma whatsoever. And that is one of the most upsetting scenes I've ever seen, right? Like that is an image that is forever etched in my memory of, wow, that's upsetting,
And then this season you have Darlene just offhandedly say,
yes, I delivered
that baby.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh.
So I thought that was very good. I wanted to bring up one other thing about my argument earlier about, like, I felt it was implausible that Marty Byrde is still alive. I think because of how last season ended, and the killing of Del, right, played by Isai Morales, like, that's like, oh my gosh, TV show. Like, when that happened, I was like, because I don't know what your experience was, but I thought, oh well, they're gonna wrap this up with this deal, and Marty Byrde's done it again, hooray! And then the Darlene just straight up executes Isai Morales, or Del, and I'm just props to you, show, for doing a shocking thing. But when a show does something like that, Jeff, the show has dug itself into a massive, massive hole. Like, it is incumbent on the show to prove to me that these characters are going to stay alive. And
don't you think that this entire season is reckoning with that moment?
Not the entire season, but certainly the first parts of it. And I just don't believe that Marty Byrde passed the burden of proof that he, like, what Marty Byrde should have done is, hey, FYI, the Snells executed Del, but he didn't. He basically lied to his employers, right? And I gotta imagine that treachery would be rewarded with severe punishment. Of course, there is that scene where Peter Mullen murders his own henchman, and I get that was like a repayment, but I just don't believe that would be sufficient based on everything I've seen from mob stories and then the show is not content to leave it at that, Jeff. It doesn't just say, okay, well, that problem's solved and Marty Byrde's free and clear. It layers on subsequent things that Marty Byrde does to piss off his employers. That's why I found it so unbelievable. So I just wanted to hopefully clarify that a little bit.
I do agree that is the one moment of the season that I found to be a little hard to swallow, is this notion that killing their henchmen somehow created equilibrium. From killing like this like major dude,
right?
Like that Jacob Snell would know that he would just sort of know that would make it okay with them, and then it does make it okay with, like, if I'm the cartel, I don't care that you killed your dude. Like you still killed one of my biggest dudes. Like
yeah,
it's
like kill the dude plus $5 million. Do you know what I mean? Like or something like that.
I mean, I thought it was effective because he was willing to do that instead of giving them a percentage. Like it's a very small percentage that Marty and Wendy proposed to them, and so he's willing to kill his own. I found that to be illustrative of the character in a really cool way. Of
right.
Like life is less important to this guy than $5 million or a percentage of his profits. So I thought that was kind of cool, but I agree with you that it was an odd, like he knows the cartel is going to be like, oh, you killed your own guy. Okay, we're cool. It's like,
right. Maybe like double check with them first before you plunge the knife in. But okay, let's talk about a couple of other subplots. First of all, I want to say Janet McTeer, who plays the lawyer, is amazing in this season.
Awesome.
Plays Helen Pierce. So cold-blooded. I'm like, when I watch this show, I'm like, I wish I had seen Helen Pierce in more things. I'm sorry, Janet McTeer in more things. Like I wish I had seen that actor because she is so good. She's apparently in Jessica Jones. I have not seen that show. But I think she sends a chill down my spine every time I see that character.
Yeah. There's no way she's not the head of the cartel, right? She is the cartel. I believe that character is. She keeps saying my employer. I'm like, no, it's you, baby.
I don't know if I agree with that. Rachel, played by Jordana Spiro. This is a major subplot this season, right? The idea that Rachel stole from Marty and that they would reconcile and that Marty kind of has a thing for her and would be willing to kind of go to bat for her and make sacrifices for her. Did you believe that on any level?
I think again, another thing that I will agree with you is that Marty, a seemingly inherent characteristic of who Marty is that he has this like complete and utter character evaluation of people. Like he inherently trusts Ruth and inherently trusts Rachel completely with no like he knows that they're not going to betray him,
even though all those characters, every single character he trusts betrays him.
Right,
literally everyone.
What I find so cool about that, and I agree that perhaps from one perspective it can strain credulity, but what I find so cool about that is what ultimately wins them over. Like he puts faith in people, he puts trust in people, he sees something in them that they don't see in themselves, and that ultimately is inspiring to them. And I find that to be a really cool notion, a really cool theme in this character, is that he has decided that Ruth is a good person. And she doesn't even know that, right? But she is constantly tugged to Marty's side because of his trust in her. And I think that's something, I don't need to get off too esoteric here, but I think that's something that happens in real life. I think when people actually are given responsibility and given trust, they live up to it. And I think that's a really beautiful thing to see in a TV show like this because you don't really see it very often.
One other subplot let's talk about is Ruth's father. Now, this is, in my opinion, what captures what I really don't like about this show, which is, that character is cartoonishly evil, in my opinion, right? Just... he's like, you're not gonna we're gonna steal because we like stealing. Like, there's no other reason. It's not like even like they need the money. It's just like, you're a criminal because you're gonna stay a criminal because you're of criminal blood, and I'm gonna make your. It's just he's such a sleazeball and like so terrible and has zero redeeming qualities, and you just know that the show is setting them up for a big confrontation, which it takes 10 episodes to get to. I just think it's emblematic of like the worst aspects of the show. That character, in my opinion. What'd you think?
Well, I disagree. I mean, I see the elements that they're playing on, which is he's not just saying, "Oh, your blood is your blood." He sees this foreigner to their land, right, to their area, this rich, clean-cut a-hole, in his opinion, come in and offer his daughter a life that he could never offer her. And she's tempted by it. She's tempted to be something. She's, with her book learning and her smarts and all this, he hates the idea that she would be tainted by what he considers to be a reprehensible lifestyle, you know, persona in the form of the birds. And so I get that, right? I can see truth in that. It's not so much that he's like, we're criminals and we always do crimes. This is the life we lead. This is the kind of people we are. You're not different. You're not different than us. Just because this guy comes in here and offers you things and gives you a job that, he's taking advantage of you. He doesn't ever actually, he says this to her over the course of the series. He doesn't actually give you any power. He doesn't actually give you any responsibility. And in fact, when the permits are being examined, he asks her not to actually be the one in charge. He puts this stooge in place. That all is evidence to her father that this isn't real. Don't expect, this isn't your lottery ticket that you won out of this life. This is the life we lead. This is who we are. And don't think that you're better than me because you're not, right? I get that. I think that's a legitimate character. And yeah, he does a lot of horrible things, but also there's this beautiful moment in the middle where he actually is a pretty decent dad to her in his own horrible, effed up way. When she's being brutalized by the cartel, he actually helps. He actually comforts her. He actually tells her not to break and not to say anything, and don't be afraid because you haven't done anything wrong. It's like there's this beautiful moment between the two of them, and he actually, does something that heartens her. So again, yes, I feel like he's a pretty one-sided character in the terms of being a shitbag, but even he has a moment where it's like, oh, there's something he does care for his kids in a weird way, in his own perverse way. I don't know. Again, all this stuff worked for me, and I'm sad it didn't work for you.
It's cool. I'm very much enjoying hearing you. Like, I think you arguing for why it worked is basically your review of why the show is good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And even though it didn't work for me, like I enjoy hearing you talk about why it worked for you, because it's like, okay, I like alternate perspectives even if they're not mine, and even if I find them unconvincing, but. Yeah, so many things like that. Like, the show is, in my opinion, oppressive. It's filled with characters that are almost completely unlikable and have very few redeeming qualities. He has that one moment in a 10-hour season, where he shows himself to be a human being, like you said. And I think there's just many characters who are like that. And yet, despite all that, I'm going to keep watching this show.
And in 3 days, power through in 3 days.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to watch season 3 when it happens, because the performances are so strong, because the cinematography is so strong. I'm showing up for Laura Linney and Janet McTeer, really. That's who I'm showing up for. And as long as the show keeps giving them interesting things to do, I'm going to keep watching. I also thought Peter Mullen was great in this season too, and it was a very again. It's so I'm getting irritated though, just talking about it. It's so over the top, this whole oh, we were young once and everything was so beautiful, and look, this woman who was such a firecracker, now she's going to murder me on our walk, and look at the tragic bookends of this love story. It's just so, everything is just turned up to 11, and when everything is turned up to 11, to quote Syndrome, nothing is. So the show frustrates me, but I still don't know how to quit it.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
I love it, and I'm into it, man. I can't wait for season 3. I think this stands alongside my favorite shows in this genre. Justified, Breaking Bad, The Shield, Sopranos. All these sort of relatable bad guy, in over his head. How's it gonna shake out? I think it's this show kind of shortcuts Breaking Bad in a lot of ways. It jumps into season 3 or 4 of Breaking Bad, and what if his entire family was on board from the beginning? That would be it's a really compelling concept. Is this entire family is. I thought the arcs with the kids were interesting. I'm super into it.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, I think what you just said is madness. I don't think this this has many of the appearances of a show like Breaking Bad or The Sopranos. I just don't think it is like because of the characters. I just don't think it comes close to that show. I think the characters in a show like Breaking Bad and The Sopranos are much more well-rounded, in my opinion, like much more believable from my perspective. But
you know, another thing I love, and I almost forgot to mention, I love the little iconography at the very beginning of the episodes.
No, I love it. It's great.
It's so fun.
It's because like
keep an eye out for this.
Keep an eye out for this stuff, and it's like it's subtle enough that it doesn't really spoil anything.
Yeah, it's not a spoiler at all. It's more like Easter eggs, like it's planting little Easter eggs. It's rad.
Yeah. It's one of the more effective opening credits sequence of a show. So really appreciate that. Ming Lu in the chat room says, "I hate the show and hate myself for continuing to watch it." That's not quite as strong as or that's a bit stronger than my opinion. Like I don't hate the show, but yeah, I do watch it and I do feel bad. Like I do feel like, oh man, like should I?
By that.
What'd you say?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just said I'm baffled by that. But go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just like, should I be spending my time watching this shit? I feel like Breaking Bad became about more than Mr. Chips becomes Scarface, and I think this show is aspiring to do that. This show is aspiring to become this kind of epic, this sprawling epic about families and escaping your blood and so on. But the way it does it is so ham-fisted that it never really achieves that, in my opinion. Like I'm in it more for the plot machinations than about what it has to say about family. Do you know what I mean? But what do you think? Like as we wrap up here, when you come away from this show, like what do you think the show's trying to say? What do you think the show is? What's the show's message? What is your takeaway from it?
Boy, that's a tough question to answer. It definitely resonates on a family level. I mean, my wife and I watch it together. We both really dig it, and we often comment to one another, "Oh, please don't ever do anything like that because I don't think I could do that." Or it's fun, silly stuff, but it's like I don't think I could, cover up a murder for you, honey. I'm sorry, or whatever it takes. So there's, I don't know, and how the kids, like, they're trying to be good parents in this weird lie. And there are these fun scenes in this season where they're like sitting around the dinner table trying to have this normal life when everyone knows that it's just bonkers to even attempt that, and she's like, I want to go out. And they're like, no, you can't do that. It's what are you talking about? We're doing way worse stuff. So there's a weird, fun comment on family and the lies we tell ourselves that I find to be interesting. I also feel like, I mean, this is almost a side thing, but the idea of money laundering as a focus for a show is so pertinent to what's going on in the world right now. And I find it interesting. And I think what we're learning is that there's, this entire other economy that's happened throughout the world that is dark and mysterious and criminal. And so I don't know. I like that aspect of it because it makes me feel like I'm sort of, involved in what's happening, just in a brain space of what's actually going on in the world. But it remains to be seen what the takeaways are. I think it speaks to power. It speaks to what we're capable of and what we want. And but it's not. I don't know. It is pulpy fun for sure. I'm not trying to say that it is anything greater than that.
But wouldn't you say that Breaking Bad? I would not ever call Breaking Bad pulpy fun. I would say Breaking Bad is more than the sum of its parts. Ditto The Sopranos. I would definitely not call The Sopranos pulpy fun.
I certainly. I don't want to be misunderstood. I didn't mean to say this show is as good as Breaking Bad or The Sopranos. Okay, I just think it stands alongside them as of the genre of excellent examples that are fun to watch. I think Breaking Bad is superior to the show in every conceivable way.
I see.
But that doesn't mean that this show isn't, it can't stand alongside it and be. It's not like, well, I watched Breaking Bad, so watching Ozark is useless. Like it doesn't invalidate watching Ozark for me. I feel like it can stand alongside those and be just as interesting and fun to go through and spend time with.
Well, Jeff, appreciate you taking the time to chat with me about Ozark Season 2, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
And stay tuned, listeners, because we're probably going to do one of these for like BoJack Horseman as well. So,
yes, an equally dark show in its own way.
I will say there's one thing that there is a subplot this season that's very similar to the subplot of this father-daughter thing, and I think BoJack Horseman handles it much better. And it's this animated show set in this like crazy wackadoo world. Anyway, you'll know when you see it. I'm being extremely vague about it, but maybe we can come back at that point and talk about that subplot. So
I'm excited. I adore that show.
All right. Thanks for listening. See you later.